Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tokuskai Inside Look podcast. This episode is brought to you by our amazing patrons over at Patreon, who have generously donated as little as a cup of coffee to as much as the cost of a bowl of ramen per month. You can find episode videos for these interviews as well as deeper dives into other subject matters at patreon.com/Tokuskai Canada. If you are enjoying this work, please consider supporting us. Go.
Okay, great. So I'm Valentin Vervack from Belgium. I was born in 1989. Was born in Belgium as well. I'm half French actually. My mother is French. My father is Belgian. I had quite a normal childhood, I think. I was a quiet child, not doing too much weird stuff at that time. I was doing quite a lot of sports when I was small or younger. I did tennis, I did horseback riding. Yeah, about any sports that any child could get their hands on, I think I tried it. But I didn't do any of them very long, up until I got into university. I got my driver's license. And then for me, it was kind of freedom. And so I found the Budo, the Iaido and Jodo, which I still perform today. And this was kind of my first free choice of sports, really.
Okay, well, you mentioned tennis and horseback riding, which are like very Western sports. Did you have any influences in Asian culture or Japanese culture before you got into Iaido and Jodo?
No, not at all. My family is really Western, so nothing Asian incorporated in that. So yeah, like I said, I always had an attraction to martial arts, but I didn't really like the contact sports like karate or judo, especially not in the way it is practiced here in the Western world, or like the typical way you would see it. So yeah, I never got into any of that. Although my father used to practice judo when he was younger, but I never got into that.
So there was never, like, as growing up as a kid, there wasn't any push from your parents to do something with that kind of discipline or self-defense or any of that stuff?
Nope, not at all. I think the only thing I got into through my parents was a horseback riding, because we had some horses at home. So I started at a very early age, and I stopped when I was about 14, I think. So yeah, part of that, nothing else really was mandatory or pushed into it.
So you started Iaido and Jodo. You found that in the university days. What was how did you find it? And then what was it like at the dojo in those kind of earlier days?
Well, like I said, I always wanted to do some kind of martial arts, but without really having the contacts. And then I started searching on the internet through karate, and then because I knew there was like a kata form in karate, and then through the internet I found kendo, and then I found a club in the city I was doing my studies. And so I thought, well, I'll go have a look. I contacted them and they said, okay, well, we have actually 3 Budo. We do Jodo, Iaido, Kendo. So why don't you come at Thursday? We do all 3 of them on the same day. We start at 6 and we end at 10. So why don't you come at the beginning, and then we'll see how it goes. And so I think I started to do Jodo the first time I got in. I just followed like a beginner's class. Was a very small group, so I got some very good information, and then I got into the Iaido class the same day. About an hour later, did a beginner's introduction class as well, and then I didn't even start the kendo because I was so enthusiastic about the Iaido. So I said, okay, this is it. I don't have to go any further than this in the introduction because I just want to do this. I was really, I think, overwhelmed by the discipline that was shown in the introduction class, and yeah, there was like a good group of people, and they were all friendly. I was well, how to say, welcomed into the club, I think.
Okay, and how did that now fit into your school schedule? Because I imagine you would be pretty busy. How did you balance the time?
Well, actually, it was very easy because classes at university were only maximum until 5, I think. And so I had a lot of time in the evening. And typically the class would start at 6:30, I think, yeah, 6:30 in the evening. So I had plenty of time to go from university to the dojo. And so typically I think I was the first at the dojo, so I could sweep the floor and just prepare the dojo, because there was always like a gymnastics class before us. So we have to clean and then put the mirrors up and prepare stuff. So typically I would be one of the first there and start already warming up and stuff. And actually it was kind of a weird timing, but from 6 to 6:30 there was like free keiko of Jodo at that time. So I would like roll into that, and sometimes there was only one person doing Jodo. And so I offered to be their tachi sometimes. And so I got interested in that as well. That's how I started to do Jodo as well the year after I started doing Iaido. And our second keiko was on Sunday mornings from 9 to 11. So it was quite easy for me as well to go, since I didn't have anything else to do in the weekend. And it didn't interfere with my studies, so it was perfect.
Okay, so I imagine in those early days you were just kind of going to practice and exploring this new art. When did you start seeing that there was a wider community around this, like within Belgium and then also internationally?
Well, I was very actively present in the keiko, especially on Sundays, I think, because that was the longest keiko we had. We had 2 hours keiko then. Also, the group was very big at that time. You have to know that for the moment we don't do the Sunday trainings anymore because nobody is coming. But at that time we had like 15 people coming on Sunday. And then there was the proposition of going to the regional trainings. And so I went to those, I think in the first, or like 4 or 5 months after I started, for the first time. So that was already a big eye opener, that there were like different dojos and different people, other styles as well of practicing. And I think later that year was the first time I entered the national championships, which I lost like after 3 rounds or something in the Mudan competition. But that was also a big eye opener, because it was a whole other way of practicing. It was not just practicing in the dojo. There was really pressure. You had a feeling of having someone next to you. You had the thrill of being able to go forwards into the competition. So it was a really nice feeling.
Were you into any other type of competition before this? Like the sports you were doing, some of it could be recreational. Did you participate in any tournaments or any of that?
For the horseback riding, I did some competitions, but that were group competitions, and then some jumping competitions. But that was when I was really young, like 10, 11, something like that. And I never really got like the real stress or real competition feeling at the time, because it was all fun and playing. For tennis or something like that, I never really did some real competitions like I did in Iaido. or Jodo. So no, not really the real feeling.
Okay. Yeah, so that would have been your real kind of first one-on-one. If I mess up, then I lose.
Yeah.
There's nothing else affecting it. Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
kind of what I liked as well, because like with tennis or horseback riding, you always have the factor of, the horse not willing to do whatever you want, or the court being not completely flat and the ball going wherever it wants. And for the first time in my life, I had a competition or something that I was completely in control of doing. And that was for me something that was at the same time comforting and on the other side confronting. But I kind of liked the confrontation because it was something I could work off.
So one of the things that defines this practice is there's times where everything's going smoothly, you feel like you're improving very quickly. Mostly for beginners, because you're learning new things, you can pick it up very fast. When was your first major feeling that, okay, this was something that is difficult? This is something that I really need to put more effort and focus and discipline into my practice?
That's a difficult one, because I think in technical stuff, like you say, it comes quite easily in the beginning, and you handle stuff quite quickly. But for me, there was always an underlying factor, like watching to my senpai and how they do it and how they perform, like the technique in a kata or waza. And so it was not only mimicking a certain technique, but also trying to mimic what's behind that. And so quite early on, I was facing difficulty in how to make something realistic and not only technical. Also because the sensei at the time was really into gut feeling and not only showing technical stuff. He was like, okay, if the tip is just a little bit deeper, it's not that important, but there has to be some gut feeling. And as I had no fighting experience in whatever, not even like in school or whatever, I didn't understand that gut feeling and that seimei or zanshin and stuff like that. So for me, this was challenging very early on already.
When you don't have that experience doing fighting, did the Jodo start helping in that aspect, or how did you start turning that around to incorporating it?
I think Jodo started helping my Iai when I got Yondan, because there I really started to see some analogies. And actually it was the other way around first. My Iaido started to help my Jodo because I saw certain katas of Yai in katas of Jo. And so I was thinking, if I would fight myself in this Yai situation, holding a Jo, then I should move more like this, or I should react more like that. And then I try to make the same analogy in Yai. So if I would find myself fighting myself with a Jo, how would I react in this situation? Or how would I hold this kamae? Or how would I feel at that time? And I think this really started when I got around Yondan.
Yeah, speaking of one thing helping another, did you have any other interests, or was it the sports from before? Was there anything at that time when you were also doing the practice of Iaido and Jodo that you found was kind of going back and forth, helping out each other?
I think mindset is a big thing there, because if you only go to the Jodo to the dojo to improve and to get like instruction from your senpai or sensei, like we are used to doing in Western classes, like you go to a course and you get something to do and then you do it and then you get out of the course and then you stop thinking about it. I think if you practice in that way, then you won't be able to progress as fast as you would as if you would really put your mind completely into the keiko. And this is something I did and I still do. I think a lot about Iaido and Jodo even outside of the dojo. The way you walk in real life, or the way you comport yourself in real life, how you talk to people, how you respect people. I think if you have like this kind of culture, it doesn't have to be the real Japanese culture, but the Budo mind in your everyday life, then it can really enhance your keiko as well. And if you come to the keiko with an open mind and just think, okay, I have to improve myself, and if you have been thinking about this, how to improve yourself in the days before, then it will be easy to, well, like try out something at the dojo, I think. And if then you get an extra pointer from your senpai or your sensei, then it will help even faster because you already did the thinking progress beforehand.
Yeah, that's a very cool insight, because as you're talking about it, I realized that when I was in university, I wasn't doing that. I was just going into class and then they telling you, and I'd like forget everything by the exam time. But if you really worked on it, and then there's these people that sit in the front seat and they're asking all the questions. I'm like, where are you getting these questions from? They must have studied something.
Yeah, I realized this in a professional life as well. Like, if I look at how I was in university, I was just, like you say, I was just going to classes and I did what had to be done. But if I see how I'm now working professionally, I'm really thinking about everything I have to do daily. And also because I have to teach now, also professionally, I think differently, and I'm really thinking I was stupid at an earlier age, and yeah, exactly what you said. But I had more like an active mindset in Budo than I had in my studies, actually.
Yeah, and then talking about improvement, one of the things that a lot of people say is when they go to Japan for the first time. So unlike most Europeans where I've never met before, we actually met in Japan one time. Could you maybe talk about your experience going to Japan? It seemed like you were there for a longer period of time, and you were by yourself. So how did that come about? And then I don't know if you've been multiple times, but could you talk about your trips to Japan and how did you structure your days and your practices?
At university, we had the chance in the last year to do like an exchange program. And the way that works, it's not really an exchange because there's not always a student from the other university coming to our university. So you get the chance to go study abroad. And at that time, I think I was practicing Iaido already for only 5 years, but I was already 4 times European champion by then. And then I got like sports status at the university as well. So that means that I could skip classes to go to trainings, or I could reschedule exams as if I had like really important seminars or important shiai. So that helped me as well to get the chance to study abroad. And we had some connections with dentists in Japan, and so we got into a university there. And so I got the chance to study in Tokyo for 3 months. And so the moment I got the grant done and everything, we started searching for a dojo where I could practice. because the dojo of our sensei, Oda sensei, was in Shizuoka, so it was practically not possible to go every week or so to Shizuoka for Keiko. And so we found the dojo of Hatakenaka sensei, your sensei, in Tokyo, very close to where I was going to university. And we got into contact, and she said, yeah, no problem. You can come to Keiko whenever you want. And so that being said, I went whenever I could. I think they have like 4 training moments in the week. And so I tried to go as much as possible because my days at university were about the same, starting at about 8 and finishing around 5. So I could go to most Keiko, and also the Keiko at Hatakanaka Sensei's dojo were quite free. So you could enter at about any time and start your Keiko, as it would not be a very organized Keiko as we know in the Western dojo. So yeah, I got quite a lot of training done there, and it was most of the time free Keiko, but a lot of the senpai would also give some pointers, and Harakanaka sensei would also come and give some pointers. But it's a whole other way of training than we were used to in the Western dojo, because at that time in our dojo we had a 5th dan as a sensei who would always lead the keiko. So you should come at time, and then there would be an organized keiko, and then you wouldn't have any free keiko or any free time to practice whatever you wanted. So it was kind of weird to come into a dojo and having to practice for yourself for like about 2 hours every time. So I was very happy anytime that the senpai or the sensei would come in and give me pointers, so I could work on that for several hours and even days.
So for other people that have interest in like maybe the younger generation that's going to university that has this opportunity to do an exchange plus also practice, what kind of advice would you give them? What did you wish you knew before you made this trip over? And then what do you think would help someone adapt quickly and make use of the time?
Thing is, I never really planned for any of this to happen. So it all came very sudden and very easy, as to say, because yeah, it was quite weird, but the connections were already there with Japan at the university, and also on the Iaido side, we already had connections through some senpai with Hatakanaka sensei, so this was already done as well. So personally, for me, I think I should have practiced maybe more Japanese before going, but since it was done in very short time as well, I didn't have that much time to study. Anyways, I think anyone practicing any Budo in some serious way should do the Japanese classes anyways, because it helps you so much on any level, social and dojo level or practice level, let's say. So yeah, probably the language was the biggest barrier, let's say.
Okay, so did you, when you came back to Belgium after that trip, did you notice any changes in your Iai or the way that you practiced?
I think I was able to work on myself more than before, and that because of that I could more easily reflect upon myself what was correct and what wasn't by looking at like video or in the mirror. And I think it was easier also to how to say, we all have this. I think Theo talked about this as well. This magical mindset about Japan, of how it looks and how it works there. And so I think I was kind of demystified at that point, because I really lived there for 3 months. I practiced like 4 times a week in the dojo there. So my vision of Japanese Iai was also changed. So it was, yeah, how to say, we all have this kind of mindset that Japanese Iai is always better than what we practice, and that everybody there is super motivated and is doing everything naturally and stuff like that. But I saw young and old beginners in the dojo there, and they were doing the same mistakes that we were. The only thing that came naturally was Seiza, and then the way, how to say, the typical Japanese politeness, let's say, that we don't have in the Western dojo. So way, I think it made practice easier for me, because I thought, okay, even Japanese people have these difficulties and not everybody is doing it so natural. And on the other side, I had a peace of mind as well that, okay, I will never be able to practice Iai like a Japanese because I don't have the Japanese culture. So like I was saying, the way of sitting in Seiza, or the way of greeting people, or the way, there is this Japanese culture that's completely fixed into the Budo that they are born with, that we don't have. And how long and how much we study, I don't think we will ever be able to comprehend it completely. And so our Iai will always be different from a Japanese person practicing Iai in Japan.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like the difference could be, it's not a good or a bad thing, because when you can actually incorporate both, then you have a little bit of you can understand kind of where the Iai comes from a little more. Just like you practiced in Europe, you practiced in Japan, and then somehow it seems to have worked. And I remember that when we first saw you, we hadn't been practicing too long either, but I was like telling Hannah, hey, look at this kid over there. There's this Western kid in this Japanese dojo, and he's like, amazing. I'm gonna go talk to him. So and then looking at your record too, it seems like things have just gone smooth for you, just straight line upwards. So maybe you can demystify that a little bit, if for other people, has it really been that easy for you to just, okay, I'm just going to go practice and I'm just going to win?
I don't think there's anybody who just wins without doing anything. So for me, like I said, I had the time. I was young. I went to Keiko a lot. Even at the point where I really got into the Shiai and the European Championships and stuff, I went training at least 4 times, if not 5 to 6 times a week. So I think this is already a big point there. Without any Keiko, you don't get a good base. And I think base and Kihon is everything. So you have to practice. I spent hours and hours only doing my in Japan, at home, anywhere. And so I think that is already one big point. And like you say, I really never had any problems doing my examinations. So at the time, if the time came at the European Championships, I would participate in the examinations, and I never failed, but I don't really work up to these examinations either. I just practice what I have to practice at that time to improve my Yai, regarding what my senpai and sensei say. And I say, okay, exam is coming up. Can I participate? I participate, and up until now, it has always passed. So in Shiai, it's a bit different because indeed in the first 4 years, I think I won every Yai competition I did. But after that as well, you get into such a tight group. Everybody knows each other, and levels get very close to one another. And then it gets, yeah, kind of 50-50, even because your opponent also has had the same hours of Keiko that you had. And so at that time, it's really that gut feeling, that realistic Budo that comes out, even if it's only Sandan or Yondan, or even Nidan. At that level, the technical points are all the same. So it's that little bit extra that you can put in that will play the bigger role, I think. And yeah, I've been lucky to have the opportunity to do quite a lot of Shiai and to train with a lot of different people. I think this helps a lot because every Shiai, either if you win it or lose it, you always learn something. And sometimes I'm quite sad because I have the feeling that when I lose, I learn a lot more, because a lot more people come to you and say, yeah, next time you have to try this and that. So you get a lot more pointers when you lose than when you win. So I always have this feeling, okay, I win. But then the level of the one who loses gets closer and closer every time, up until the time that they get just better than you, and then you get the pointers, and then you get better than them again. And so it's a hop on, hop off kind of game, I think. Yeah, so it's all about hard training and really being with the correct mindset every day, and not only at the times you go to the Keiko.
So you had mentioned a few people that had helped you. I like to think of this framework that some guy in another podcast had said was everyone in their life, they need something called a plus, a minus, and an equal. So someone that's senior to them, that can teach them, that can pull them up, or motivate them, inspire them to get better. There's, so that's a plus. A minus, so a junior, so someone that they can either teach or to learn more of how they think about stuff, or someone that you see coming up to almost to your level. And then there's a peer, so an equal, someone that's, you're always like battling each other, and one person gets better, the other gets better, and it motivates each other to be better. So who might those people be? Who are your plus, minus, and equal?
I think quite early on, I had my plus was my direct senpai at the dojo, Christoph. And it was, I think, because of his path that he created already by being part of the national team and participating in European championships, that I followed him in that path. I went with him to different dojo to do Keiko. I participated with him in national championships and European championships. So he already laid the path for me to follow. But I think quite early on, 2-3 years after that, he had to not really stop, but I think he couldn't come as much to Keiko because of family and work, which I now understand a lot better than I did at that time. And I think also just a bit after, when I met Christoph, because he was there from the beginning, I had a kohai starting, and he was very close to me. So it was always like my senpai would be one downgrade above me and my kohai one downgrade below me. But once we got to Nidan Sandan, he was getting into my dan grade as well, just when I was about to get out of it, and that motivated me a lot. And we are still very good friends with Stephen. But then he had to stop also. So I think around the time I got back from Japan, I ended up being alone again. So my plus and my minus, as you say, they were completely gone. So it was a difficult time to get the same motivation. Also, I had to work. I had to start working after university. So yeah, the motivation was quite difficult to find at that time. If you talk about equal, I don't really think, well, in Belgium, I've had one time when I had really like an equal, and we participated together in the European Championships. But then he also had to stop. So I think I find my equals mostly at the European Championships. And there, every time we meet each other again, it's like we are already lifelong friends, and we really help each other, going like the hop on, hop off story. But I don't think in my close perimeter at this moment, I really have this plus minus equal anymore. Now it is kind of stabilizing again, but it's not as close as it used to be in the beginning days.
How are you thinking about that? Is that something that, like, that sounds like a change in personnel? And we were talking about motivation before. How are you feeling about these parts right now in your practice?
Well, I think if you're not really motivated by yourself, and you find yourself in my situation, that it's really easy to quit at that point of time because your support is gone. There is this push motivation, and your senpai pulls you up and your kohai pushes you up. And of course, you have the same function for the others. I think if that falls away, if your motivation is not big enough to keep on going to Keiko and to keep on searching these push-pull interactions with a higher grade senpai or a lower grade kohai, then it becomes quite difficult. And I am quite lucky that I had these greater senpai where I had good communication with, and still have, but not always in the same dojo. Also for kohai, I had some kohai in the dojo, but then due to their studies, they could not always come to the Keiko. So there were a lot of times where I had to go to Keiko, and the push effect wasn't there. The pull effect was still somehow there because there was always a senpai or a sensei higher than me doing the classes. But for a long time, the push was gone. And so you kind of get stuck into a certain level. And if you don't motivate yourself by looking outside of the dojo or even outside of the country, then I think this is a really bad space to be.
Yeah, and you mentioned the European Championships. Actually, many people mention it as being one of those highlights of their practice. Is there any particular one or two that stick out in your mind that are especially meaningful to you or impactful, or you have fond memories of?
I'm really bad at remembering dates and places. I mostly remember the moment itself or the shiai itself. And I was interviewed by the Italian Kiryoku magazine, and so I had to really think back when and where this moment was. But I had up until now one Shiai with Jesper that really is stuck in my mind. Because it was the first time I could practice Koryu it was the first time doing Yondan. And Jesper is like my equal that we were talking about mostly on Jodo, because there we really have the same level. We always do the examinations on the same time. But then it was the first time for me meeting him in the individuals at Iaido. So I was so, how to say, maybe pumped up, but for me it was the closest Shiai I had to maybe a real fight, because I knew how high level my opponent was, and even though I like him a lot, I really wanted to have a good fight with him. And so I put really all my mental abilities into that. And as I said also in the other interview, I was so exhausted afterwards because of putting all my mind into it, that the Shiai afterwards, which was also with another equal of Nistan, we also always have this win or lose relationship. And I was so mentally broken at that moment that, yeah, I completely lost against Stan afterwards. So this is, I think, for me, one of the highlights of the European Championships. I think maybe another one should be the first time it's so difficult because there are so many memorable times at the European Championships. And I think one of them was the first time I got to beat the Taisho in the team Taikai. And so you not only get the responsibility of your own way of practicing, but you also have to like encourage the other members of the team. Anyways, I feel always that it's my responsibility to encourage the other team members, not only the team members of the team Taikai, but of the national team, especially my Kohai. But when you are Taisho of the team itself, then it's again something completely different. And it was quite challenging for me to find a way to get them to have the same mindset as I do when I do CI.
So what did you do?
I kicked their butt. It was quite difficult because I think we went into the first GI and we should have had quite an easy GI there, but instead my teammates saw it like kind of a warm-up, and luckily we won. But at that point I had to like come in a bit stronger to like say like, guys, if you're not waking up now, we're not going to get the end of the Taikai. We're not going to win any further. So you have to really switch your fighting mode on. We're not in any position to like slack off here. So I was kind of harsh to them at that time, I think, but apparently it helped because we ended up winning the Taikai. So yeah, I don't know if it was completely correct for me of doing it, because we always say as well, like, okay, teammates don't say anything against each other. It's only to the coaches and the trainers to like come in and give any pointers if it's needed. But at that time I completely ignored it, and I stepped in as a Taisho, and I tried to motivate them as much as possible, because I saw that the the way of thinking was too different at that time as a group. So I wanted to step it up a bit more to all get the same level of fighting spirit, let's say.
Yeah, so speaking of fighting spirit, there's different people have different ways of approaching or preparing for a match. You have those that are just stay calm, like meditation, they don't think about it. Other people, they run the kata through their heads and try to visualize. Other people try to amp themselves up to feel aggression, like they can get into a fight. Other people like to just chat around and just not think about it. What is your method of preparing? Are you the type where if I go up to Valentin just before his match, he's going to go, get away from me or something? Or are you someone that, oh yeah, I'm not going to care. It's going to, whatever happens, happens.
I'm in everything I do, I think I'm kind of a last minute guy. So up until the moment I really greet the person I'm about to fight, I'm very loose, very friendly to whoever comes to me. But the moment I watch the opponent in the eye and we sit down to greet, at that moment it's completely another world, I think. At that moment I do like have this kind of tape in my head going the kata that we have to do, like 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 or something, and constantly thinking about focusing on not the opponent then next to me, but to the kasoteki. So I really try to get into the kata or into the embu at that time.
And I have to ask, are you someone that when you're sitting on the chair just before you have to walk into the Iaido, do your hands sweat?
Yeah, a lot. Not only my hands, also my feet. Just I sweat all over. I start breathing heavily as well. So it's quite difficult to control the stress for me. But I think sometimes this is also what gets the best out of a person at that particular time. Because at the dojo we always practice in controlled conditions and we don't have any stress. But this is the only time where you are really put into a situation where you have this kind of stress, and it would be very weird or discomforting if anyone wouldn't have this kind of stress, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're getting to the point in the interview where I just want to run through some rapid fire questions, just more, not as related to EI, but something that people can help get to know you a bit better. So the first one, do you have a quote or a proverb or a motto that you think about often?
Not really. I'm not I think C does it as well. I'm not a quote kind of guy. No, I think in the local dialect we have a sentence that is said "Ni neut ni bleu," and it means don't whine and don't give up. So yeah, just don't whine, don't give up, just keep on doing whatever you have to do. Yeah.
I like that. Are you a dog person or a cat person? And why?
Cat. Cat, because they can live on themselves. You just have to give them food and water, and they can be, yeah. I don't know. I don't like dogs. I think that's the point. I don't particularly like cats anymore, I think, but I don't like dogs. I don't know why.
Okay. If we were to log into your YouTube account, what would YouTube recommend in terms of videos for you based on what you've watched in the past or most often?
I think now it would be sumo tournaments.
Sumo tournaments.
Yeah, I think it's quite amazing to see these sumotori fight each other because, like I said before, I don't have any fighting experience whatsoever. And I really like to look at their metsuke just before they start, how they prepare, and to see also their endurance during the match, and their perseverance. Sorry. Yeah, it intrigues me in some way.
Where do you go for, I guess, mind, when you don't want to think about something, when you feel stressed, where do you go to kind of unwind? What do you read or watch?
Not a big reader. I think I will watch any dumb series you find on Netflix, or dumb anime you find on Netflix. I think I started to binge watch Naruto again for the 100th time already, just because you don't have to think about anything when you watch that kind of stuff, and it can be anything, just a stupid drama, comedy, whatever.
Nice. What is your comfort food? So what do you eat when you're feeling down, or when you feel like you just need something to make you smile, or on your birthday or something?
That's a difficult one because I eat and drink a lot all the time. So I don't particularly like grab any specific food or drink if I'm feeling in some kind of mood. I think I just enjoy, of course, Belgian beer a lot. But then in certain times I like to grab a whiskey or whatever. In terms of food, I don't know, any snack will do. I think that goes well with the drink I'm having at that time.
Okay. And last question before we wrap up. What have you changed your mind on in the last few years? What is something that you believed maybe deeply about in the past that you realized, okay, there's a different way of thinking about this, or I might have been wrong in the past?
I think something that has been on my mind the last few years is that you don't have to be afraid to want to study more, want to keep on learning, and don't always have to show that you're already able to do something. This is what I thought in my studies and also in Budo very early on. In my first few years, I always had the impression that, like, if you were not able to show that you were able to do something, then yeah, you're not worth anything. But on the other hand, now I realize that even if you think at the time that you're able to do something correctly, then mostly it's not even close to being correct. So I think lately that instead of showing that I'm capable of doing something, I think I should show more that I'm not capable of doing that, or show that I'm still studying on how to do that certain thing. And this might seem lame or stupid for the younger ones, or for the kohai, or for the younger students if I'm talking professionally. But I think for me, this is the mindset I have right now, is that I'm not like Yondan or Godan, or even at my professional level. I'm only working for 8 years now. It's only the beginning. It's only a very early stepping stone, I think. And we have to look ahead, and our seniors know a lot more than we think, I think.
Yeah, that's such great advice. It's that beginner's mind. If we wanted to just simplify everything back, where you don't have to know anything, you just come to learn. So that was great. Thank you so much for doing this. I've been excited to be able to talk to you again after all these years, and I found this super interesting. So do you have anything that you might want to end with, close with, say to the audience, or a message that you just wanted to get out about your practice or anything else?
I don't know. I would like to thank you, of course, for the opportunity to talk again, and it was very nice to meet. Well, not face to face, but almost. um, I think as an advice, I would probably say if you're just starting with Budo, and especially if you're still young, just put any time you have put into it if you're really motivated. And try to also find that extra motivation, this extra mindset, not only going to the Keiko. Try to have, like you said, minus equal plus. Because at a certain point in life, you will probably have the fun and joy of having a family and being more active at work, hopefully. And then time for training will not be so abundant anymore. So, of course, I think at a certain level, you don't need as much hours of Keiko as you did in the beginning years. But of course, if you didn't do them in the beginning years, then you will still need them if you get young Godan. So I think I was lucky to be able to put a lot of hours of Keiko in my earlier years, and now that I do have a family and a busier job, that I don't have that much time anymore to go to the Keiko. I do a lot of mental training, and so when I get to the dojo, I can put it into practice. But that's, like I said, because I had the luck of being able to build a good base already at younger age. So when you do start vigorously and with a lot of time in it, I think.
That's great. Thank you so much. Great. Yeah. It was great talking to you again.
Thanks, Patrick.
See you later, Valentin. Bye. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode because we have a lot more exciting conversations to share as we explore the world of the traditional Japanese martial arts. The Inside Look podcast is made possible by our patrons over at Patreon, so if you enjoy this work and want them to continue, please consider supporting us for as little as a cup of coffee. There are many more ways for us to work together by connecting with us on Facebook and Instagram at tokuskai.canada and subscribing to our monthly newsletter at subscribe.tokuskai.ca. Until next time, thanks for listening.